The 1970s were supposed to be the muscle car's golden age continued. Instead, they became its darkest decade. Emissions regulations strangled horsepower, insurance companies crushed dreams, and fuel crises forced Detroit to abandon everything that made American performance special. Today, we're counting down the 12 worst 70s muscle cars of all time. Legendary nameplates that lost their souls, performance icons reduced to wheezing shadows, and the saddest chapter in American automotive history. Number 12. The 1979 Chrysler Cordoba. The Chrysler Cordoba became famous for all the wrong reasons. Ricardo Montalban's smooth voice sold America on rich Corinthian leather, convincing buyers that luxury could somehow replace performance. The Cordoba wore personal luxury coupe styling, but carried a muscle car price tag, promising excitement while delivering nothing but disappointment wrapped in velour and fake wood trim. Under the hood sat a 318 cubic inch V8, producing just 135 horsepower. To put that in perspective, that's barely more than 0.4 horsepower per cubic inch, the kind of output density you'd expect from a generator, not a V8 engine in an American performance coupe. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 18 seconds, making the Cordoba slower than economy cars, and embarrassingly slow for anything with V8 power. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 11 seconds, an eternity that felt even longer when you were actually behind the wheel, trying to merge into traffic. The engine note was muted and lifeless, filtered through restrictive exhaust systems and suffocated by emissions equipment that prioritized clean air over any kind of driving excitement. The V8 rumble that should have stirred your soul was replaced by a faint mechanical hum, barely audible over the sound of the air conditioning and the Cordoba's excessive sound deadening. This was a V8 that sounded embarrassed about its own existence, apologizing for every ounce of power it reluctantly produced. The handling characteristics were exactly what you'd expect from a personal luxury coupe designed exclusively for highway cruising. The suspension was soft and wallowy, allowing massive body roll in any corner taken with even modest enthusiasm. The steering was over-assisted to the point of being completely numb, providing zero feedback about what the front wheels were doing. The weight distribution was heavily front-biased, creating predictable and terminal understeer. Push the Cordoba into a corner, and it would lean dramatically while the tires protested and the entire structure felt like it was flexing and bending. Inside, Chrysler prioritized luxury theater over any kind of sporting character. That famous Corinthian leather was actually vinyl with a fancy name, and it wore terribly under normal use. The dashboard featured acres of fake wood trim that fooled nobody. The seats were pillow soft and provided absolutely no lateral support. Digital instrumentation in some models was futuristic in theory, but unreliable in practice, often failing partially or completely. Build quality was typical mid-70s Chrysler, which meant inconsistent panel gaps, rattles that developed quickly, and materials that looked cheap from day one. The exterior styling was distinctive with its opera windows and formal roofline, but the overall design was pure personal luxury coupe, with no sporting pretensions whatsoever. The Cordoba was heavy, ponderous, and fundamentally designed for a different mission than performance. What made it disappointing wasn't what it was, but rather what Chrysler tried to convince buyers it could be. Today, the Cordoba is remembered primarily for Ricardo Montalban's commercials, and as a symbol of everything that went wrong with American cars in the late 70s. Number 11. The 1977 Ford Thunderbird. The Thunderbird nameplate had meant something special throughout Ford's history, from the iconic two-seat sports car of the 50s to NASCAR dominance in the 60s. By 1977, that proud heritage had been reduced to a downsized personal luxury coupe with a weak V8 and styling that pleased nobody. This was the year Ford dramatically shrunk the Thunderbird, and the result satisfied absolutely no one. The 302 cubic inch V8 produced just 129 horsepower, an output so low it seemed almost deliberately insulting. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 18 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 12 seconds. The engine felt perpetually overworked, constantly operating at its power peak just to maintain highway speeds. The throttle response was sluggish, with a noticeable delay between pedal input and any actual acceleration occurring. The downsizing was supposed to improve fuel economy, but created a car too small for luxury buyers and too slow for performance enthusiasts. The Thunderbird satisfied nobody, falling into an awkward middle ground with soft suspension, numb steering, and a driving experience that felt cheap despite premium pricing. Inside, Ford attempted to maintain a luxury atmosphere with velour upholstery and fake wood trim. The reality was typical late 70s Ford, with cheap plastics, materials that wore poorly, and build quality that varied wildly. The dashboard layout was confusing, with controls scattered seemingly at random. The seats were comfortable for highway cruising, but provided no support for anything approaching spirited driving. Panel gaps were inconsistent, and rattles developed quickly. The exterior styling was polarizing, with some finding it attractively formal, while others thought it looked like a shrunken Lincoln. The proportions were awkward, neither fish nor fowl, creating a vehicle that looked uncertain about its own identity. The Thunderbird's fall from grace was particularly steep because of how much the nameplate had meant to American automotive culture. Today, the 1977 Thunderbird is largely forgotten, remembered primarily as a low point in the nameplate's long history. Number 10, the 1974 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu. The Chevelle had been one of GM's most successful muscle cars throughout the late 60s and early 70s. The 1974 Malibu variant represented the nameplate's sad decline into mediocrity. Gone were the aggressive styling and genuine performance. In their place was bland, generic sheet metal wrapped around an emissions-strangled V8 that delivered disappointment with every press of the accelerator. The 350 cubic inch V8 produced just 145 horsepower, less than half what the same displacement engine made just 5 years earlier. Quarter-mile times hovered around 17 seconds, making the Malibu slower than most contemporary family sedans. 0 to 60 acceleration took approximately 10 seconds, adequate for basic transportation, but embarrassing for anything with Chevelle heritage. The engine note was muted and characterless, filtered through restrictive exhaust systems that eliminated any hint of V8 thunder. The styling was the Malibu's greatest betrayal. Aggressive lines and muscular stance had been replaced with soft, rounded shapes that looked generic and forgettable. This looked like a rental car, not a descendant of the legendary Chevelle SS. The colonnade body style made the car feel claustrophobic and eliminated the clean lines that made earlier Chevelles beautiful. The handling was typical mid-70s GM, with soft, wallowy suspension and excessive body roll. The steering was over-assisted and provided minimal feedback. Inside, the cabin featured typical GM cost-cutting with cheap plastics, basic instrumentation, and seats that provided minimal support. Build quality was inconsistent, and the overall ambiance was pure Malaise-era mediocrity. What made the 1974 Chevelle Malibu particularly sad was how completely it had abandoned the performance mission. Earlier, Chevelles with SS packages and big block engines were genuine muscle cars that could run with the best Detroit offered. The 1974 Malibu couldn't outrun a determined pedestrian. Today, these cars are largely ignored by collectors, overshadowed by the genuinely special Chevelles that came before, and remembered primarily as examples of Detroit's darkest period. Number 9, the 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix SJ. Pontiac had built its entire brand identity around performance. The Grand Prix SJ was supposed to represent the sporting side of the Grand Prix lineup, with the SJ designation suggesting elevated performance. By 1979, that designation had become meaningless marketing speak, attached to a heavy personal luxury coupe that couldn't deliver any kind of meaningful performance. The 301 cubic inch V8 produced just 135 horsepower, barely enough to move the Grand Prix's 3,600-pound mass. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 18 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 11 seconds. The engine felt perpetually strained, working hard just to maintain normal speeds. The throttle response was delayed and mushy, with significant lag between pedal input and actual acceleration. The 301 cubic inch engine was Pontiac's attempt to avoid gas guzzler taxes while maintaining V8 availability. The result combined the worst of both worlds, the size and weight of a V8 with power output barely exceeding a contemporary V6. The engine note was muted and uninspiring. The handling was typical late 70s personal luxury coupe with soft suspension tuned exclusively for ride comfort. Body roll was excessive, the steering was over-assisted and completely numb, and the chassis behavior was disconnected. Inside, the Grand Prix SJ featured typical late 70s GM with cheap plastics, mouse fur velour upholstery, and fake wood trim. Build quality was inconsistent, with rattles developing quickly. The exterior styling featured Pontiac's signature split grille and formal roofline, creating a distinctive appearance that was more personal luxury than performance. The SJ package added some appearance upgrades, but nothing could disguise the fundamental reality that this was a heavy cruiser pretending to be something it wasn't. What made the Grand Prix SJ particularly disappointing was Pontiac's performance heritage. Today, these cars have minimal collector interest, remembered primarily as examples of how far Pontiac had fallen. Number 8. The 1978 Dodge Aspen RT. The Dodge Aspen RT represented Chrysler's attempt to maintain some performance credibility in the late 70s. The RT badge had once meant genuine performance, attached to legendary muscle cars like the Charger and Super Bee. By 1978, it had been reduced to decoration on a compact sedan platform that combined underwhelming performance with legendary unreliability. The 360 cubic inch V8 produced 170 horsepower, more than many entries on this list, but still disappointingly low for nearly 6 liters of displacement. Quarter-mile times hovered around 17 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration took approximately 9 seconds, adequate but hardly impressive for anything wearing RT badges. The engine delivered its modest power with no drama or character, just mechanical compliance with emissions regulations. The Aspen platform was notorious for quality problems. These cars rusted at an alarming rate, with rockers and wheel arches developing significant corrosion within just a few years. Electrical gremlins plagued the models, and build quality was so poor that Consumer Reports recommended avoiding the Aspen entirely. Transmissions failed prematurely, and engines developed head gasket problems. The suspension tuning resulted in handling adequate for a family sedan, but inappropriate for anything claiming performance credentials. Body roll was excessive, and the steering was numb. Inside, the Aspen RT featured typical late 70s Chrysler, with hard plastics throughout and seats that provided minimal support. Build quality was inconsistent, panel gaps varied wildly, and rattles were universal. The exterior styling attempted to look aggressive with R/T graphics and a blacked-out grille, but the underlying Aspen design was generic and forgettable. Nothing about the appearance suggested the performance the R/T badge promised. What made the Aspen R/T particularly frustrating was the combination of disappointing performance and terrible reliability. Today, surviving examples are extraordinarily rare, not because they're collectible, but because most rusted away or broke down beyond repair decades ago. Number 7. The 1975 Chevrolet Nova SS. The Nova SS badge had once meant something special, attached to genuinely quick machines throughout the late 60s and early 70s. By 1975, that badge had become hollow marketing, attached to a compact car with an emissions-strangled V8 that delivered minimal performance and less excitement. The 350 cubic inch V8 produced just 145 horsepower, an output that would have been embarrassing for a 6-cylinder engine, and was genuinely tragic for nearly 6 liters of V8 displacement. Quarter-mile times hovered around 17 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration took approximately 10 seconds. The engine felt perpetually overworked, constantly operating near its power peak just to deliver modest acceleration. The power delivery was flat and uninspiring across the entire rev range. There was no surge of acceleration, no sense of building power, just steady, uninspiring forward progress, accompanied by mechanical noise. The engine note was muted and characterless, filtered through restrictive exhaust systems designed to meet noise and emission standards. This was a V8 that produced no drama, no excitement, no emotional connection whatsoever. The chassis dynamics offered no compensation for the dismal powertrain. The Nova platform was fundamentally sound, but the suspension tuning in 1975 prioritized ride comfort over any kind of performance capability. The car exhibited excessive body roll in corners, the steering was over-assisted and numb, and the overall handling was disconnected and imprecise. The brakes were adequate for the car's limited performance, but uninspiring in every way. Inside, the Nova SS attempted to create some sense of specialness through unique trim and badging. The reality was typical mid-70s Chevrolet with cheap plastics, basic instrumentation, and seats that looked sporty but provided mediocre support. Build quality varied significantly from one example to the next. The materials wore poorly, and the overall interior ambiance was more economy car than performance machine, despite the SS badges. The exterior styling maintained the Nova's basic shape, with some SS-specific graphics and trim. The problem was that nothing about the appearance could disguise the car's fundamental lack of performance. The Nova SS looked like a compact car with some stripes, because that's exactly what it was. What made the 1975 Nova SS particularly disappointing was the betrayal of the SS badge. Today, these cars have minimal collector interest, completely overshadowed by earlier Nova SS models that actually delivered genuine performance. Number 6. The 1974 Mercury Cougar XR7. The Mercury Cougar had started life as an upscale alternative to the Mustang, a personal luxury pony car with genuine performance capability. By 1974, it had become a bloated personal luxury coupe that had abandoned any pretense of performance in favor of soft comfort and highway isolation. The XR7 variant was supposed to represent the sporting side of the Cougar lineup, but the reality was profoundly disappointing. The 351 cubic inch V8 produced just 148 horsepower, barely more power than many contemporary V6 engines, despite being nearly 6 liters in displacement. Quarter-mile times hovered around 17 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration took approximately 11 seconds. The engine felt sluggish and unresponsive, with delayed throttle response and minimal power anywhere in the rev range. The Cougar had grown dramatically for 1974, weighing nearly 4,200 pounds, far too heavy for the available power. The suspension was tuned for soft comfort, allowing massive body roll and creating a wallowy, disconnected experience. The steering was completely numb, and everything about the dynamics communicated luxury cruiser, not performance car. Inside, Mercury attempted to create a premium luxury environment with leather upholstery, fake wood trim, and a full array of power accessories. The reality was typical mid-70s Ford, with cheap materials that wore poorly, inconsistent build quality, and an overall ambiance that didn't justify the premium pricing. The dashboard layout was cluttered and confusing. The seats were soft and comfortable, but provided absolutely no lateral support. The exterior styling was distinctive with its opera windows and formal roofline, but the overall design was pure, personal luxury coupe, with no sporting character whatsoever. The Cougar XR7 looked heavy and slow, and it was. What made the 1974 Cougar XR7 particularly sad was Mercury's complete abandonment of the performance mission that had made earlier Cougars special. Today, these cars are largely forgotten, remembered primarily as examples of how badly Mercury lost its way during the malaise era. Number 5. The 1977 AMC Matador Coupe. The AMC Matador Coupe represented one of the most misguided automotive designs of the entire decade. AMC attempted to create a distinctive personal luxury coupe that would stand out in the marketplace. What they created instead was a vehicle with bizarre styling, terrible performance, and absolutely no redeeming qualities whatsoever. The Matador Coupe looked strange, drove poorly, and satisfied absolutely nobody. The 304 cubic inch V8 produced just 120 horsepower, an output so low it seemed almost impossible for that much displacement. Quarter-mile time stretched to approximately 18 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 13 seconds. The engine felt perpetually strained, working at maximum effort just to move the Matador's 3,800-pound bulk at modest speeds. The styling was the Matador's most distinctive and controversial feature. AMC created a fastback roofline with unusual proportions that looked awkward from every angle. Some described it as looking like a melted bar of soap. The handling was terrible, even by mid-70s standards, with soft suspension, vague steering, and marginal brakes creating an unpleasant, confidence-destroying driving experience. Inside, the Matador featured AMC's typical cost-cutting approach with cheap plastics throughout, basic instrumentation, and seats that provided minimal support. Build quality was poor, with inconsistent panel gaps and rattles that developed immediately. The materials wore terribly, and the overall interior ambiance was depressing. AMC charged a premium price for the Matador Coupe, but the actual product quality didn't justify the cost. What made the Matador Coupe particularly tragic was AMC's complete misreading of the market. They invested heavily in tooling and development for a vehicle that nobody wanted. Sales were dismal, and production ended after just a few years. The Matador Coupe damaged AMC's already fragile reputation and contributed to the company's eventual demise. Today, surviving examples are rare and have minimal collector interest, remembered primarily as automotive oddities and examples of how badly design can go wrong. Number 4. The 1975 Dodge Charger SE. The Dodge Charger nameplate represented some of the greatest muscle cars ever built. The second-generation Charger, with its aggressive styling and Hemi power, was an icon. By 1975, that proud heritage had been reduced to a bloated personal luxury coupe that shared almost nothing with its legendary predecessors except the name. The 360 cubic inch V8 produced 180 horsepower, disappointingly low for nearly 6 liters of displacement. Quarter-mile times hovered around 16.5 seconds. The Charger SE weighed nearly 4,000 pounds, with heavily front-biased weight distribution creating pronounced understeer. The suspension allowed massive body roll, and everything communicated luxury cruiser, not performance car. The styling represented the Charger's complete identity crisis. Gone were the aggressive lines and purposeful stance of earlier generations. In their place was generic mid-70s personal luxury coupe styling with opera windows, a vinyl roof, and formal proportions. The Charger SE looked like a dozen other cars from the era, with nothing distinctive or memorable about its appearance. This didn't look like a Charger. It looked like a Chrysler Cordoba with different badges. Inside, Dodge attempted to create a luxury atmosphere with velour upholstery, fake wood trim, and numerous power accessories. The reality was typical mid-70s Chrysler with cheap materials, poor build quality, and an overall ambiance that didn't justify the premium pricing. The dashboard was cluttered with switches and controls that felt flimsy. The seats were soft and comfortable, but provided no lateral support whatsoever. What made the 1975 Charger SE particularly heartbreaking was the complete betrayal of the Charger nameplate. Earlier Chargers with Hemi engines and aggressive styling were genuine muscle car legends. The 1975 SE couldn't outrun a contemporary family wagon and had absolutely nothing in common with its legendary predecessors except the badge. Today, these cars are largely ignored by collectors, overshadowed completely by the second-generation Chargers, and remembered primarily as examples of how completely Dodge lost its way. Number 3. The 1978 Pontiac Firebird Espri. The second-generation Firebird platform was fundamentally excellent, featuring handsome styling and genuine performance potential. The Trans Am variant, with its 400 cubic inch V8, was a legitimate performance car, even in the late 70s. The Firebird Espri, with its weak V8, represented the opposite end of the spectrum, a car that looked fast but delivered profound disappointment. The 305 cubic inch V8 produced just 145 horsepower, barely adequate for moving the Firebird's 3,300-pound curb weight. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 17 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 10 seconds. The engine felt perpetually overworked, constantly operating near its power peak just to deliver modest acceleration. The throttle response was sluggish, with noticeable lag between pedal input and actual power delivery. The 305 cubic inch engine was Chevrolet's corporate small block in its most strangled form, shared across numerous GM products, and optimized for nothing except emissions compliance and fuel economy. The power delivery was flat and uninspiring across the entire rev range. The engine note was muted and characterless, producing mechanical noise rather than any kind of V8 thunder. Under hard acceleration, the engine would strain audibly while delivering minimal forward progress. The chassis dynamics represented the only bright spot in an otherwise disappointing package. The second-generation Firebird featured excellent bones with good weight distribution and sophisticated suspension design. The steering offered decent feedback by late 70s standards. The handling was competent with predictable behavior at the limit. The problem was that without adequate power, all of that chassis sophistication went largely unused. Inside, the Firebird Espri featured Pontiac's typical late 70s interior with cheap plastics, mouse fur cloth upholstery, and a dashboard that looked dated even when new. Build quality was typical GM, which meant inconsistent panel gaps and rattles that developed quickly. The seats looked sporty, but provided mediocre support. The overall interior ambiance was more economy car than performance machine, despite the Firebird badges and sporty styling. The exterior styling maintained the second-generation Firebird's attractive shape, which remained handsome throughout the platform's long production run. The problem was that the aggressive styling created expectations the Espri's powertrain could never meet. This looked like a performance car, like something that should be quick and exciting. Instead, it delivered economy car performance wrapped in sports car styling. What made the Firebird Espri particularly frustrating was the existence of genuinely good Firebirds on the same platform. Today, Espri models are completely overshadowed by Trans Ams and Formula variants. Number 2, the 1976 Chevrolet Camaro. The second-generation Camaro was one of GM's most attractive designs, with long hood proportions and aggressive styling that looked good throughout the platform's 12-year production run. The 1976 model year represented perhaps the lowest point for Camaro performance, when emissions regulations had fully taken effect, but before Chevrolet figured out how to extract decent power from compliant engines. The base V8 was a 305 cubic inch small block, producing just 140 horsepower, barely more power than contemporary six-cylinder engines. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 17 seconds. 0 to 60 acceleration required over 10 seconds. The engine felt perpetually strained, working hard just to move the Camaro's 3,200-pound mass at normal speeds. The throttle response was delayed and mushy, with significant lag between pedal input and actual acceleration. The 305 cubic inch engine represented Chevrolet's attempt to maintain V8 availability while meeting increasingly strict emissions standards. The result was an engine that combined the worst aspects of both worlds: the size, weight, and fuel consumption of a V8, with power output barely exceeding contemporary V6 engines. The power delivery was flat and uninspiring. The engine note was muted and characterless, filtered through restrictive exhaust systems that eliminated any hint of V8 rumble. The chassis dynamics offered some consolation for the dismal powertrain performance. The second-generation Camaro platform featured good weight distribution and sophisticated suspension design. The steering offered reasonable feedback. The handling was competent with predictable understeer at the limit. A skilled driver could extract some enjoyment from the Camaro through twisty roads, even if straight-line performance was profoundly disappointing. Inside, the Camaro featured typical mid-70s GM interior design with cheap plastics, basic instrumentation, and seats that looked sporty but provided mediocre support. Build quality was inconsistent, with some examples feeling reasonably solid while others developed rattles and squeaks immediately. The materials wore poorly and the overall interior ambiance didn't match the attractive exterior styling. Chevrolet charged a significant premium for the Camaro nameplate, but base V8 models delivered little to justify that cost. What made the 1976 Camaro particularly frustrating was the enormous gap between appearance and reality. This was one of the best-looking cars on American roads, with aggressive styling that suggested genuine performance capability. Then you'd drive it and discover an engine that couldn't deliver any excitement whatsoever. The disconnect between what the car looked like it should do and what it actually could do was profound and disappointing. Today, 1976 Camaros with base V8 engines have minimal collector interest, completely overshadowed by earlier high-performance models and later examples after Chevrolet figured out fuel injection. Number 1, the 1974 Ford Mustang II. Taking the top spot on our list of the worst 70s muscle cars is the 1974 Ford Mustang II, and that placement reflects just how completely this car betrayed everything the Mustang nameplate represented. The original Mustang had created the pony car segment and defined American automotive cool. The Mustang II was based on the Ford Pinto platform, powered by weak four-cylinder and V6 engines, and represented the absolute nadir of Mustang heritage. The base engine was a 2.3-liter inline, 4 producing just 88 horsepower. Even the optional 2.8-liter V6 managed only 105 horsepower. Quarter-mile times stretched to approximately 18 seconds, making the Mustang II slower than economy cars and profoundly slower than anything deserving the Mustang name. 0 to 60 acceleration with the 4-cylinder engine required over 14 seconds, an eternity that felt even longer when you were actually behind the wheel. The 4-cylinder engine buzzed and strained unpleasantly under any kind of acceleration demand. The engine note was industrial and harsh, producing mechanical thrashing rather than anything resembling character. There was no exhaust rumble, no sense of power, just the sound of a small displacement engine working at maximum effort to move the car's modest weight. The V6 option was marginally better, but still profoundly disappointing, producing a coarse, unpleasant sound while delivering minimal performance. The Mustang II was dramatically smaller than the previous generation, sharing its basic architecture with the Ford Pinto economy car. Ford's decision to base the Mustang on an economy car platform represented the ultimate admission that performance was dead, that regulations and fuel economy concerns had killed the muscle car dream. The result was a vehicle that looked vaguely Mustang-like, but shared absolutely nothing with the performance heritage that made the nameplate legendary. The handling was competent for an economy car, but completely inappropriate for anything wearing Mustang badges. The suspension was soft and compliant, prioritizing ride comfort over any kind of sporting behavior. Body roll was excessive, the steering was over-assisted and numb, and the overall chassis behavior was disconnected and uninspiring. The brakes were adequate for the car's limited performance, but unremarkable in every way. Inside, the Mustang II featured typical mid-70s Ford interior design, with cheap plastics, basic instrumentation, and seats that provided minimal support. Build quality was inconsistent, with rattles developing quickly and materials wearing poorly. The dashboard design was simple and functional, but completely devoid of any sporting character. Nothing about the interior suggested this was a Mustang. It felt like exactly what it was: a Pinto with different badges. The exterior styling attempted to evoke Mustang heritage with a long hood and short deck proportion, but the execution was compromised by the small dimensions and economy car foundations. The Mustang II looked like a scale model of a real Mustang, proportioned oddly and lacking the presence that made earlier Mustangs so attractive. The styling was polarizing, with some finding it cute while others thought it looked cheap and unfinished. What makes the Mustang II the worst muscle car of the 70s isn't just its poor performance or economy car platform. It's the complete betrayal of everything the Mustang name represented. The original Mustang had democratized performance, making exciting driving accessible to average Americans. The Mustang II democratized disappointment, proving that even legendary nameplates could be reduced to economy car mediocrity when regulations and corporate cost-cutting overwhelmed any sense of mission or purpose. Ford sold the Mustang II in significant numbers, proving that many buyers valued the nameplate and styling over actual performance capability. But enthusiasts were heartbroken, watching as one of the greatest automotive nameplates in history was reduced to a Pinto and Mustang clothing. The Mustang would eventually recover, with the Fox body platform beginning the long climb back to respectability. But the Mustang II remains a permanent stain on the nameplate's history, a reminder of just how low American performance fell during the darkest decade in automotive history. Today, Mustang II models have minimal collector interest, except as historical curiosities, completely overshadowed by every other generation of Mustang, and remembered primarily as the car that almost killed the pony car forever. The 1970s were brutal for American performance. Emissions regulations, insurance company pressure, fuel crises, and corporate cost-cutting combined to nearly kill the muscle car dream entirely. These 12 cars represent the darkest depths of that decade. Legendary nameplates reduced to shadows, performance badges that meant nothing, and the death of an era. But even in the darkness, enthusiasts never gave up hope. The muscle car would return stronger than before, proving that great automotive traditions can survive even the worst circumstances. Which of these disappointing machines do you remember? Drop your stories in the comments below. And if you love honest automotive history that doesn't sugarcoat the failures, hit that subscribe button. Until next time, remember that even the worst cars teach us what makes the great ones truly special.